Hey everybody, so I wanted to do this video blog on kind of a two-part thing. We had a set of dental experiences in my family just in the last month alone. And I want to share a little bit about that because there's been a lot of discussions both in the past and in recently and how PT, physical therapy and physical therapists have the opportunity to serve in a primary care capacity very much like dentists do, or even optometrists by extension. And for probably 3 years in a row, I've written about how that's a model that we really need to start exploring and taking advantage of. And I wanted to loop back to that after I share my dental care experiences on how we can move beyond just the 6 month checkup model that customers are familiar with. While that and it's required that is our launching point, but there's so much more to do. So, the three dental care experiences we had, kind of, I feel covered the big gambit of dental care. And all due respects to dentists out there, I have family and friends who are dentists. So this is just, it's not a judgment on you, but just a reflection of perhaps where your colleagues and the spectrum of, everybody. There's always going to be good, bad, and ugly in every profession and industry. So the first experience is what I would consider to be, your I expect it to be your average experience, your expected experience where a dentist has a plan of care for you and gives you all the various options, and kind of, depending on the situation, will recommend two or four against a certain type of care. Then there's the other one, and I personally had this one where I went in for care, and it was a lot of, ooh, I don't know about that. Oh, that looks terrible. And there was a lot of this fear mongering going on, and just very. It was well, I guess it wasn't really implicit, but it was the communication that I was receiving as the patient was, my teeth look awful. They should have fallen out years ago. And what ended up happening was I was upsold beyond understanding, and I conferred this with just a couple of dental sources that I have and friends and family, and just yeah, it wasn't any good. And then there's the far opposite expect, which I feel is the high end, where a dentist and their team will cover all your options, explain every single option, and tell you what is recommended financially, what is recommended for longevity, what's recommended for cosmetic concerns, and lays out everything, all the various experiences and expectations of each intervention. And then finally, they ask you, what do you want out of this? And then they kind of realign their set of recommendations with what your goals are for that care experience, or care episode. And that is wonderful. And we had that very, very awesome experience just recently. And as I thought about that, right, it brought me back to these discussions starting probably in 2012, 13, 14, somewhere there, and continuing into present, about how if there is a primary care provider for your internal health, if there's a primary care provider for your your eye health, your vision, right? And if the primary care provider for your teeth and even your feet, why not for your physical body as a whole? Which also kind of begs that question of, well, if there's poor correlation with a lot of the things that we are getting primary care for, at least in mainstream, call it medicine, healthcare, and it doesn't really give us that guarantee, yet there's actually a building body of evidence of, hey, your physical abilities, your ability to walk, sit and stand and get off the ground, have direct, very, very direct lines to how long you're going to live for and how well that life will be lived. Shouldn't that be part of the primary care spectrum? I think so. And I've written a couple pieces about it, but it really hammered home through these last set of dental care experiences that, man, we got to get out there, right? If we as a culture, at least in the United States, I remember in kindergarten we had brush your teeth time after lunch every single day. The teacher would bring out this big board of toothbrushes. It was like some carved out wooden board. Everybody had their name slots, and we all run in there and rinse our toothbrushes with water, and we pretend, and we brush downstairs, upstairs, left, right, in, out, and all that stuff. If we have a culture of that, why not a culture of physical health, of physical activity, of, hey, are we making sure we're moving optimally, properly, correctly, and often enough? because we already know that there's this huge body of evidence that, hey, the more physically active and able you are, the better your life will be and the longer it will live out in quality. So that moved on to another discussion of, well, it needs to go beyond 6 months. I mean, whatever we feel is appropriate in terms of primary care PT, of how frequently we need to check up on people. And that's great. But we need to move from, well, you need to stop doing these things, or you need to start doing these things so your body doesn't just fall apart, right? Because I think that's kind of the general message, at least in that I receive as a consumer and customer in dentistry, is, hey, you have to do these things, otherwise your teeth and your gums will go bad. And I fear that in healthcare, that's still kind of the general message. You got to do these things or stop doing these things, otherwise your health will go bad. But what about, you got to start doing these things or stop doing these things so that you can have optimal health, right? You have the best health and best body and best life experience possible. I believe I tweeted out, I definitely liked and shared it on Facebook. There's a meme somebody created. It was two different women in their 70s. Which one do you want to be? One was super, super fit and looked like she could probably lift more weight than I can. And one was your, quote, stereotypical, 70-plus-year-old. And I think that image definitely needs to be changed. And PT is definitely in a position to make that transformation. And that's our goal, right? That's our calling, to transform society. And I feel that we can do it through this particular primary care medium to optimize health. And then there's some pretty cool discussions about, well, if there's medical insurance or health insurance, right, and there's vision attached, and there's also dental insurance, why not physical health? And there's a big argument for that, because how many times in the spectrum of healthcare is care ultimately denied or deemed medically unnecessary because of some type of physical health concern? Typically it's physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech, the rehab therapies, spectrum of healthcare. That's what either qualifies you or disqualifies you from an insurance standpoint. So why not have a separate insurance for that, or have a different continuum, per se, which may actually make the bigger picture more affordable, rather than looping everything into one pot that may not be so well managed because there's too many conflicting factors. Why not be very precise, right? And be very precise about both the financial measures, but also the health measures that can very easily predict overall welfare growth, both from an economic standpoint, but also from a societal standpoint, and how healthy we are. And the healthier we are, the less burden we're going to have on healthcare, the system at large, which only means that that particular economic ecosystem will improve, right? It will grow just by economic laws. So it was just kind of a little thought I had. I think there's a lot more to talk about, beyond, this pipe dream of having a physical therapy insurance. And I think there's a lot of actionables that we can do, starting, by branding ourselves at an early stage to, customers to be or consumers to be, about physical health, and how physical therapy is the best choice to optimize your life experiences, and to go beyond, your body's going to fall apart if you don't do these things, into you need to come see us regularly so that we can make sure your experience is the best you're ever going to have, so that you can be skydiving in your 20s, and in your 80s you're still skydiving. You might be climbing, big crazy rock faces in your 20s, and you'll still be doing that in your 80s, right? And that's where our lifespans are going. And I think that's where we really need to start looking at, is transforming on the two extreme spectrums, on the very, 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 very young, right? And on what we consider the older populations, because those lines and those continuums are starting to get a little bit more blurred, right? How many, what we would have considered geriatric patient populations, are now doing things that people have issues doing even in their 30s, right? There was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt that was recently promoted, and I think he was 78, right? Giving 20 and 30-year-olds problems on the mat. So it'll have to start a transformation of our minds, right, in the physical therapy profession, in this industry, in order to, that mindset has to change first, and then we can bring that same kind of mindset to our consumers and to our customers. So that's kind of my thought about primary care PT. I think we really need to start exploring the reality of it, right? You always can test it first. Proof of concept always comes through cash, right? Will people pay out of pocket? And then from there, we can start about scaling that up into a system level situation, which would be pretty cool. So I'm Ben Fung. Thanks for being with me, and I'll see you next time.